Welcome back. I got to talk about university presidents. They're trying to distract from their leftist propaganda. The presidents of Idaho's public universities have had multiple chances over the last several days to own up to their role in promoting social justice propaganda. They had their chance. They had their chance to promise to implement reforms. And instead, the heads of hubris, as I call them, at the University of Idaho and Boise State University doubled down. They deflected from a well-documented record in which their schools have shown open hostility toward American ideals and gleeful support for leftist neo-racism. When asked during a budget hearing about the University of Idaho's pro-Black Lives Matter website, President C. Scott Green claimed that the site really is just an educational website for people who want to know what the movement is all about. Come on, President Green, you mean to tell me that without the University of Idaho, people wouldn't be able to figure out Black Lives Matter? If only there was something like a search engine where people could, I don't know, look things up. Well, there's not one, so I guess we'll have to create one at the university. Come on. It's interesting if true, but obviously it's not. What's really objectionable is that Green went on to purport to state lawmakers in charge of his school's budget that the website is a venue for multiple perspectives, including, as he said, voices from conservative figures. Well, for months, the university's Black Lives Matter resource page has been filled to the brim with ideas, articles, books, podcasts, and all of it almost exclusively from socialists, Marxists, and racists. I pointed this out last summer. And the website remained mainly unchanged. I even met with Green in August, where I reiterated my concerns, but only in the last few weeks, right before the legislative session. The site was updated to include 3 articles from 3 prominent defenders of our country's values, Walter Williams, Thomas Sowell, and Shelby Steele. You can track the changes to the site via the Internet Archive if you don't believe me. 3 articles out of 100. I guess that's all it takes to shut up conservatives who, as Green put it, make a living complaining about university indoctrination efforts. And then let's talk about Boise State University. Boise State President Marlene Trump, she told state lawmakers that it's her goal to lift up all voices so that everyone is heard regardless of their viewpoint. And that sounds great. Unfortunately, that's not what's going to happen. Trump announced the school is going to have this new Center for American Thought and Advancing the American Experiment. This is nothing more than a distraction from the ideological indoctrination at BSU. It's an obvious effort to reposition the university and mitigate against legislative backlash because the university has this progressive activism. The new center is designed to go against the American values that we hold deeply. So deeply is the social justice ideology that it teaches America is irredeemably racist and seeks to dismantle the American way of life. Unless the legislature acts and forces Boise State to return to its core mission, this Center for American Thought will quickly become the center for why America is racist. So Trump is hoping she'll get enough lawmakers to ignore the fact that the university's administration egged on the students who ousted a coffee shop from campus simply because the coffee shop was pro-police. She's hoping lawmakers will forget about the fact that BSU has its own share of pro-BLM websites. And then, of course, there's the biggest elephant in the room, the fact that BSU is so infused with leftist social justice indoctrination that it's in the coursework, it's in the housing, it's in the school's policies, it's nearly unavoidable for students, and that's all been researched by IFF. It's not impossible to imagine that Trump would appoint a radical activist who will control the center and continue poisoning students' minds with disdain for the principle that this country represents. So far, the school has done nothing to prove that it's invested in historical truth, and this new institute will not appreciate the beauty that so many others see in America. So I asked Stephen Thane, the chairman of the Senate Education Committee, what lawmakers are going to do about all this social justice nonsense. His answer? Probably nothing. It's in another video, check it out. That explains why the presidents of Boise State and the University of Idaho are going through the motions, doing the minimum, saying the predictable things they need to say to make it through the next several weeks unscathed. But over in the House of Representatives, different story. There's a bigger and, in fact, growing appetite to do something. I hope they do. I hope they show Green and Trump and the rest of the country that our public colleges and universities, that what they're doing is not okay, and that these taxpayer-funded institutions need not continue to be the indoctrination factories that they've become. And now, it's time once again for our Statist of the Week. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have the distinct honor today of naming two Statists of the Week for their outstanding work in promoting statism. Mike Simpson and Bruce Newcomb. Yes, Mike and Bruce both served as the Speaker of the Idaho House of Representatives. Isn't that exciting? They both held the same job. Mike, of course, is a sitting United States Congressman where he specializes in camouflage. I mean, he blends into the crowd so adeptly, it's hard to distinguish him from liberal Democrats. Way to go, Mike! You're really good at just kind of fading into the woodwork there. You don't hear much from Bruce Newcomb these days. He's retired from Boise State University, where he was part of the administration that introduced the school to the thrill of social justice engineering. I'm not saying that Bruce is responsible for it, but he was there during that time. Mike and Bruce recently wrote a guest opinion beating up on members of the legislature for wanting to end the ongoing state of emergency. That's why we're giving them this award. They wrote, and I should say someone wrote it for them, that a crisis is not the time to dismantle the governor's ability to respond quickly during a state of emergency. Unfortunately, they go on to say that the Idaho legislature's reckless and careless attempts to end the COVID-19 emergency declaration and weaken Idaho's response and future emergency puts the generation and future generations of Idahoans at risk, which is complete and utter nonsense. It's just a load of hogwash. Or maybe it isn't. Maybe they're right. And what Idaho really needs to handle a crisis, to provide the easy way to lead during a crisis, is a king. I don't know, having a legislature, a judiciary, a governor, a bunch of state agencies. Man, that is so inefficient. What is this, 2015 for crying out loud? We need to do something totally different. We need a king. We need a ruler, a dictator. And Mike Simpson and Bruce Newcomb, well, they didn't say that, but yeah, they kind of did, because they continue to build on this narrative that one centralized authority exercising unilateral power over the people of the state of Idaho for an entire year, well, that's worth it, especially if we get our hands on some of that awesome federal money they keep printing in Washington, D.C. So I think this award is well deserved. Suddenly, it's a good thing that Mike Simpson, who hasn't done anything to rein in federal spending, is on the scene to promote Idaho's continued acceptance of federal dollars. And so, our Statist of the Week, Mike Simpson and Bruce Newcomb, for recognizing that government is best that governs a lot, all the time. Who will be next week's winners? You tell me, actually. I want to hear your suggestions. Drop me a line, wayne@idahofreedom.org. And until we talk to you again, have a safe weekend.